Now, yes, the Raiders aren't necessarily a team that can sustain this philosophy for so long, but Zamir White is now the face of this offense. It's crazy to say because Devontae Adams is still there, and as long as he's there, he brings a high-profile name and brand to the Las Vegas Raiders. But Zamir White fits Antonio Pierce's philosophies for this offense better than anyone now. Antonio Pierce actually said he wanted Josh Jacobs to be the face of this offense. Now he's gone. So now Zamir White has to step into that role. Only 13 carries, 44 yards, 4.6 fantasy points. Very talented. And some of the decision-making that Antonio Pierce made in terms of situational downs did not seem to rely upon the fact that he trusted his own philosophies. And so it's highly concerning if you're a back like White who wants to break out, who knows that he can get a lot of opportunities, a lot of touches, a lot of targets in this offense. But there's some level of distrust there where Antonio Pierce maybe feels like he was left with you to where it's not translating to solid production for you. So Zamir White is someone that might just be a swing and a miss. But I'm still holding out hope for him because, like I said, it is week 1 and the Raiders are going to be a run-first team. Perhaps the most disappointing of all. A guy who a lot of people take very high in fantasy drafts, even knowing the risk of doing it. A guy who a lot of people were saying was going to get a lot of touches in the system. Raheem Morris confidently said we are going to get this guy more touches in this offense. He did get the touches, but not the efficiency. Bijan Robinson. 18 carries, 5 catches off 5 targets. That's 23 combined quote-unquote touches for Bijan Robinson. So that's a solid NFL starting quarterback. But only 68 yards, no touchdowns, and the 5 catches for 43 yards. Yes, that could be down to the pressure this offense was facing because of the Pittsburgh defense. Yes, it could be because Kirk Cousins really was not equipped to play this game because he looked very stiff in this game. That being said, if you're Bijan Robinson and Raheem Morris is saying, hey, I want to make sure you get your touches in this offense, then you have to produce. Because they did everything to get him the ball in this game. But he just didn't live up to it. He's going to face easier defenses in the future, yes. But kind of setting the tone for this offense was going to be important for him. And he just didn't live up to that. It's disappointing because a lot of people think very highly of him, especially in fantasy terms. But right now, he's not, whether it be because this offense is learning too much too quickly, or maybe they just ran into a Pittsburgh buzzsaw. I don't know. He's going to have to be the X factor for this offense. But overall, you can't place too much weight. Because like I said, fantasy football is a very predictive thing. It's a very future-heavy thing. And all we have right now is what happened. With that being said, take these winners and losers with a grain of salt. There are some winners that will probably be fantastic fantasy players for the rest of the season. But there are some who might falter. And there are some losers who still have potential. So make of this what you will. But at the end of the day, I'm just seeing what I saw this weekend. I'm basing that kind of predictive manner of winners and losers off of what I saw. So take this with a grain of salt. Coming next, we transition in our last segment from the NFL to college football. A wacky, bizarre week 2. Right after this short break. Hello everyone and welcome back to the final segment of the day here on the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, and it should be an interesting one because we are leaving the realm of the NFL and entering the college football realm. What a weekend in college football. A lot of different storylines. Texas going into the big house, dominating Michigan 31-12. You had some wacky games. Arkansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Tulane. You had some fascinating get-right games. Clemson against App State. You had some fascinating rivalry games. The Cy-Hawk rivalry, Iowa State, Iowa, coming down to a last-second field goal. But who are the fantasy stars that define this weekend in college football? We'll have to find out. Let's start off with the quarterback position. And you guys might be tired of this young man and me talking about him, because there were a lot of fascinating key performances. Kudos to Carson Beck, who just does what's needed in front of him. Playing in FCS school, okay. 18-25, 242, 5 TDs, 31.5 fantasy points. Just another day at the office for him. Rest the second half. We have to shout out Mr. Cade Klubnik. 24 of 26 passing, 378 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 rush touchdowns, 47.6 fantasy points. Clemson needed a fantastic offensive performance to mitigate for their demoralizing loss against Georgia. And that's what they got from Cade Klubnik, proving that Clemson might just be in the in-between in the ACC where they can sneak in to the college football playoffs, keeping themselves in the conversation, avoiding the upset. But my fantasy star of the week, and until someone has had 2 performances in the past 2 seasons, or week 2s, against teams competing for national titles, on the road nonetheless, then I can't pick anyone over him. And so my fantasy college football quarterback of the week is Quinn Ewers. Again, not as fantastic and fascinating a performance as other guys. 24 of 36, 246 yards, 3 TDs, 21.8 fantasy points. But if you can remember a time when a quarterback in the past 2 seasons went on the road, respectively, to 2 teams that set the standard in college football. Last year against Alabama, a lot of people didn't think Texas had it in them to go down there. Quinn Ewers delivered perhaps his best performance in a Texas uniform. This year, going to Michigan, yes, they were the favorites on the road, but a lot of people were like, hey, this Michigan defense might keep this game honest. And he just blew them away. You can look at the numbers, yes. Fantasy sometimes is about numbers. Cade Klubnik. I'm not dissing this guy's performance. Outstanding get-right game for him. But Quinn Ewers, in the biggest moments, on the biggest stages, always delivers. In fantasy, 21.8 fantasy points from your QB. Maybe not the best. But he gets the job done, and he does it well. And you can expect more of these performances as Texas gets into SEC play. I'm looking at that middle part of their season, Oklahoma and Georgia. Look out for him in those big games. Let's go to the running back position. Appreciate more guys who you may not have heard of, who you may be looking for in the fantasy college football waiver wire. Those of you who do, in fact, play fantasy college football, maybe some of you don't, but to those who do, this segment's for you. Let's talk about a guy, if my dad is watching, he'll definitely love this, who a lot of people want on their national radar. Maybe they have seen him before, but are a little bit skeptical for some reason about him, but I'm not skeptical about him at all. Kyle Nunga. We got a question from Andy Manzan. Fantasy question. My friend did well with those quarterbacks yesterday, but he's still 50-50. He wants to know who should start, Caleb or CJ next Sunday. Fantastic question. As the Texans play the Bears on Sunday. Now, I want to spoil tomorrow's segment, but I do have both fantasy